Welcome to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast, where you can learn and be inspired by real-world examples of how technology is transforming businesses and reshaping industries in a language everyone can understand. Here is your host, Neil C. Hughes.
Welcome back to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast. Now, here we are right in the eye of the storm. Yes, it's holiday season, and I'm fascinated by how technology is raising our expectations from retailers. Because we're seeing everything out there now, from smart changing rooms, smart mirrors, and even the evolution of virtual shopping via 3D, augmented reality, virtual try-ons, and the list goes on and on. And when I was researching this topic, I came across a company called Zakeke, and they're helping brands and retailers to offer their customers live product personalization and 3D and AR views. So I wanted to find out more about how they integrate visual commerce solutions, both online and offline, all with the goal of letting brands engage their customers with these rich, interactive, design your own experiences. And what impact is this going to have on the future? Because I know if I've experienced all those things in my favourite store, I'm not going to go back to a store that offers me an inferior experience. But we'll discuss this and much more today. So buckle up and hold on tight as I beam your ears all the way to San Francisco, where Lou Laporus is going to discuss all this and much more. So a massive warm welcome to the show. Can you tell the listeners a little about who you are and what you do?
Sure. And thanks for having me on your show, Neil. It's a pleasure to be on a show that I follow and I actually enjoy. So it's great to be here. I'm the CMO of Zakeke, and I manage the marketing functions, including inbound and outbound marketing, as well as our partnership program. Our company is global. We have thousands of customers around the world and across a variety of vertical markets. And our business is really creating unique and immersive shopping experiences. And we enable merchants to offer personalized products and create compelling 3D shopping experiences, both online and in store. The technology today transforms customers into creators. That's kind of a key thing. And it lets them build and interact with their own version of the products that merchants are offering. The measurable benefit that we've seen for merchants is a lot more sales, fewer returns, far fewer returns actually, and much higher customer ratings. What makes our company a bit unique are sort of two attributes. One is that we not only bring great expertise in 3D rendering and augmented reality, but our roots are in e-commerce, and so we really understand the needs of the merchants and the needs of shoppers and the intricacies that are required to create a compelling shopping experience. Then the second, our solution is an end-to-end solution, so we enable people to model, configure, and visualize and customize their products.
Well, it's a pleasure to have you on the podcast. Even bigger pleasure because I know you're a listener to the show. And because you do listen, you're going to know exactly what's coming your way today. So I've got to ask, you know what the first question's going to be here. Can you share your origin story, where your passion for technology came from, and what it was that put you on this path you're on today with that world of marketing and technology and how it all collided for you?
You just never know where life is going to take you. Sometimes you have a plan for yourself and then things change along the way. But, you know, as a child, I think I knew early on that I wanted to be in technology. I sort of grew up with the space race, and I was fascinated by all the technology that took people into space. But what also fascinated me was all the computers that went on to calculate our path through space. And the other influence was my father. He worked on electronics, and I would always watch him dismantle and repair things. And I began doing the same with some things in our house. And I guess fortunately for me, I was able to put things back together. Otherwise, my parents may not have been so supportive of my interest. But later in life, I started building my own gadgets and started building boards for the early personal computing platforms. And so, you know, this really took root in my earlier years. So when I went to college, I majored in physics and computer science. And then my first job was my dream job, which was working at NASA, the Johnson Space Center. And that was just a lot of fun. And the aerospace world brought me to Silicon Valley. to work on some projects out here. And while I was working in aerospace in Silicon Valley, I was recruited into the tech industry to start working on TCP/IP networking technology. And so I've been in the tech industry ever since then. So that was a key turning point there. And then another one was my first manager in tech gave me an opportunity to take ownership of a product line and manage both the business side and the technical aspects of the product line. And so ever since that, I've been involved with the product design and also the marketing and go-to-market strategy for businesses.
Well, there's so much I'm looking forward to talking with you about today, especially with your history in technology, because if we look at the world of shopping, we've seen everything from virtual reality to augmented reality, virtual changing rooms. Now there's talk of entering a metaverse. I'm curious, how have you seen the evolution of virtual shopping in your career?
Kind of interesting. The industry's been working towards virtual shopping for probably more than a decade. Yeah. However, recently, it's the pandemic that really has been a forcing function to drive more widespread adoption. And, people sometimes needed to be pushed or kicked into the future. And I think the pandemic did that for us. So it's really only been the last few years where the technology's matured to a point where it can be used by a broader set of developers and consumers. And that's made a big change. So the hardware platforms are capable of delivering realistic visual experiences, including try on and try out. And of course, the change in 5G networks supply enough bandwidth to support robust connections. And that's really a critical factor as well. So, when I look at the user experience as on the other side, it's been refined to a point where it's now easier and more accessible for a large cross-sections of consumers. So we have brands and businesses have had time to experiment with a number of different approaches and see how consumers react. And the shopping and buying experience itself has improved, and I see that continuing to improve over time. So it's a lot easier, more cost-effective for people to experiment. I'd look at it today, I'd see three experiences that are very common. You have try-on for worn products. You have try-out for products such as home furnishings that can be placed in your environment. And then you have interact for interactive products like electronics and vehicles. So you can do all of this on a smartphone or a mobile device, as well as your laptop or desktop. So that's pretty compelling. And it's been a revolution I've seen sort of unfolding slowly. So it hasn't just sort of hit us in the face. It's just sort of evolved over some time. And if you look at the numbers, that's really is very telling. We have like 1 billion smartphones and tablet devices that can deliver augmented reality experiences. And in the next year, we'll see 100 million consumers shopping using AR or online or in store. And the appetite for this technology just continues to increase. So if I look back again at the numbers, if you look at 2018 compared to today, the number of AR users has doubled since 2018. So it's pretty amazing. The other thing that's important to note is there's a big difference between different retail categories. So I don't expect to see a single tipping point. I expect to see many tipping points as the technology gets adopted at various time points in different categories. So for the consumer, this is kind of cool, is that, they've now taken on the role of designer and personalizer. And that's made a big difference for the merchants as well, because it's really sped up the process of getting the right product to the consumer more quickly. So they don't have to spend as much time with the consumer working with them on the details. The consumer just sort of takes their time to do this on their own and figures out what they want. And for the merchant, we see a lot of different things that are of value for them that's changed recently. And that's a lot of it is like cross-sales approaches where I can mix and match an experience, like trying on glasses with a shirt or some other apparel and just see how well they go together. That's one example. And then the other benefit that we've really seen is the reduction in the number of returns. So, people physically would go and buy multiple products and then try them out and figure out which one worked best for them and then return them. And I think we're seeing less of that now with the augmented reality. People can sort of vet the products in advance and then select only what they want. So those are a lot of change that I've seen.
And you mentioned the pandemic earlier in your answer there, and it does feel like it's changed the landscape forever. And it's also changed the perception and the expectations from consumers right at a time where many retailers now are looking to bounce back and make up for that lost ground during those lockdown periods and hit the ground running. So here we are right in the middle of the holiday season. Can you expand on the importance for brands to adopt a more omnichannel approach to shopping? And by that, I mean everything from virtual shopping and tech, both in retail and e-commerce, because there's so much going on in that space right now, isn't there?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I think the pandemic has pushed people into an omnichannel world. And so that's where the consumer lives. And I see omnichannel as being the future for most categories of products. So the virtual world hasn't displaced the physical world. I think people still find great sport in going into a store and enjoying the shopping experience. And it's also very social. It's a very social experience for people. So, I don't think that's going to go away. But clearly, e-commerce and the virtual experience is enormous, and it's something that retailers really have to take advantage of if they're going to be successful. And while there's no universal rules for an omnichannel approach, what may work for one line of goods or a region may not work for another. So it's important for the merchants to excel on three fronts. One of them is the shopping experience itself, the convenience, and then, of course, value. And while online and in-store experiences need to be able to work on their own, merchants have to figure out, how do we make these things work together? And we've seen a little bit of that in the past with the buy online, pick up in store, or the ability to go into a store and select things that you want to customize a product, and then you can view it and then have it shipped. Or in some cases, you can actually have the product made. I've done that myself, gone into a store and had something customized, and it was made while I wait. So it was pretty cool. That's also getting us into an area where the merchants can have, they can offer an endless variety of options for their customers. So they have lots of colors, they have lots of sizes and shapes that they can choose from, and materials. And by marrying the experience with a capability such as try on and try out, merchants, improve the shopper's overall buying experience, and they provide a great deal of convenience and immediacy. So, those are things that the technology has brought to the experience, both online and in store. And I'll sort of just, wrap up this by saying it gets down to the old adage that, you need to meet the customer where they are, and you need to meet them on their terms. And the customer today is at the end of a mobile device often, or they're on a home computer or a connected TV or some device like that. So, the more places you can meet the customer, the better it is for you as a merchant.
And on that very topic there, what kind of retailers need to adopt technology, would you say, to help customers visualize and customize their purchases? Is it widespread across multiple industries there? Because it feels that our expectations are increasing all the time, and it doesn't matter if it's B2C or B2B, because we've got that expectation now. We want that. I suppose that Amazon and Netflix and co have given us that instant gratification, that we kind of take that expectation with us everywhere, don't we?
We do. And Zakeke just conducted a study on that very topic recently. Yeah. So we worked in conjunction with YouGov, and may come as no surprise that the top items that people are seeking are apparel, shoes, and home furnishings. So it does cut across a great variety of items. And another area that we're seeing a lot of growth in is automotive. A lot more car companies are now introducing 3D and AR when they introduce a model. And people have gotten used to the sort of touchless approach, where you just go online and order what you want and it just shows up. So those are sort of the top areas. Again, apparel, shoes, and home furnishings. I think, consumers are demanding customization and visualization on everything from, big ticket items like cars and boats to just everyday things like jewelry and sporting goods and eyeglasses. So if you want to learn more about that, by the way, you can go to zakeke.com and download our study, and you can get all the details there.
And I'll make sure I add that link to the show notes so people can find more information about that and have a look at some of those figures. But you mentioned customization there. How important is customization and allowing consumers to play that role of creator? How important do you think that is now? There's some big name brands out there. I've seen Adidas. That's something that they take pride in. Is it something you're seeing more and more of?
Yeah, we sort of see it everywhere. So,
yeah.
It cuts across all products from shirts and eyewear to cars and sofas. And I think a lot of it is it's a very human thing for, people to have a connection with their possessions. And they love to have their items that they wear or use be a reflection of themselves. So, in the past, it was very difficult to do this, and it was not really possible without going to great expense or great effort. And today, that's all changed. And so there's a high demand for that. So with a robust supply chain and very specialized manufacturing, it's very easy today to get exactly what you want, and you can get it when you want it and where you want it. So, if a store isn't delivering that experience, then their competitors will, and they may be losing out. So I think it's important for companies to start getting with that. The demand, I believe, has always been there. And I think the technology has just really caught up to that demand and is providing that visualization experience that serves the consumer very well. The experience has to be very enjoyable for the consumer. Otherwise, they won't use the technology. And so this is where, companies like Zakeke and others really shine. You have to be able to know how to present a sophisticated technology in a very approachable manner. And you need a deep understanding of rendering technology and e-commerce to make that work. And I think that's really what's changed recently is people, the right companies have come to play in this space that bring those levels of expertise in those areas to bear on the solutions. You can also look at this another way. So if you allow your customers to customize and personalize items, you're in a great position to spot trends before other people. So if you observe your customers' behaviors in a very respectful way, you can sort of, see and identify colors, patterns, shapes, quantities, and item types that are trending or not trending. And then you can provide, the products and designs that meet the taste of a changing market. And then you don't waste people's time with things that they don't want. The other thing you can do, and some people are just catching on to this, is the ability to test market. So you put something out there even before it's built, and just see how much demand is there for it, and what types of things people want to do with it, and how they want to design it, and then you can quickly take it to manufacturing and go to market.
And I'm curious, we will have a lot of people listening around the world that are hearing about Zakeke for the very first time. So for those people listening, do you have any use cases that you can share of how you're helping brands to create experiences like this and solve some of the problems that we're talking about here?
Yeah, we have tons. So there's actually way too many to cover. The whole spectrum of solutions is pretty broad, but I'll just pick a couple of quick examples, and then I can point the listeners to our library of use cases on our website. So, we work with globally recognized brands such as Armani and Testoni and Nalgene, and you can customize handbags, shoes, water bottles, and so forth. But I think it's probably more powerful if we select a couple of examples that may be a little bit lesser known so that people can see some value that we bring to things that may be a little bit less obvious. So I'll select a company in the U.S. that's based in Minneapolis, Minnesota. They're called 1801 and Company, and they're a printing studio, and they offer full service printing and laser cutting for weddings and home decor and events. And they focus on acrylic goods, and they craft their pieces big and small, and at their facility. And previously, their customization process was very manual. So they had to spend a lot of time with the customers to get things tailored just right for them. By incorporating Zakeke's technology, they were easily able to put the design and the customization experience into the hands of the customer. And that automated the entire process and was less time consuming for the company. And the net result for them was that they doubled their revenue by adding Zakeke in the very first year. So it's pretty impressive. Another company that I'll give an example of is a company in France, and they're called Flex Arcade. And they focus on the sale, manufacture, and rental of arcade game cabinets. And so what they do is they use a Zakeke 3D configurator to empower the customer to design products. And there's so many combinations and permutations. There's literally millions of them. It would be impossible for them to display this in a printed catalog, or a digital catalog. So what they do is they use our configurator to enable the customer to customize the cabinets any way they want. And so they become the creator, and then Flex Arcade receives the configuration files. They put those directly into the back office, and then the customer can view the configured item in AR, and they'll see how it will look in their own environment. So that's pretty cool, and it's pretty fast. The process is way faster for the consumer than the previous way that they were doing business. The customer ends up getting exactly what they want, and then the merchant lowers their cost of customization. And the other benefit that it provided them was the appearance of being a very cutting edge and forward-thinking company. So that's sort of an intangible, but it really does make a difference when people see that you're on the cutting edge of things. And so what I'd like to say now is if you want to learn more about that, just again, visit our site. There's a lot of case studies, across a lot of different use cases and industries. And I think there's something that anyone that's a merchant will be able to relate to.
And when you're at the cutting edge there of an industry that is continuously evolving, a lot of big brands, you've mentioned some huge names there, are going to be looking at you to lead the way. So I'm curious, what are the big tech trends that excite you at the moment that you got a very close eye on, especially as we think about entering another new year and the changes and opportunities and exploring the art of the possible? Is there any particular tech trends that excite you right now?
Yeah, there's actually a few, and a couple of these might sound to be old anymore, but I've been really monitoring AI and speech recognition for a lot of years, and they're exciting me today because they're really hitting their stride. So we've talked about using these technologies, and we've seen them in some use, but I think they're really coming into their own way right now. And I think they'll continue to improve, and they'll serve us well, not only in sort of practical ways, but they'll also amaze us and do some things that may be unpredictable in the future. So I'm excited about those technologies. We're also, as people, growing accustomed to talking to our devices. And so having them understand our requests and then respond and perform tasks is just becoming the standard way of going through life. So I think in the near future, I'm going to expect the network to anticipate needs and then design some preparations without us having to ask. And we're seeing some of this today in the enterprise. So you see that in the small scale where there's scheduling apps and so forth that will anticipate your needs and pull up the right resources that you're going to need for an event. And I think that will make its way to the consumer market as well. So notice things that you're interested in, and start to make the preparations for you to shop and pick up those items and find the best places to go order them.
And of course, we are at that time of the year where every article in your newsfeed is tech trends for the following year, what to expect in 2022. So I'm going to ask you to take a gaze into your virtual crystal ball and try and predict where the industry is heading from what you're seeing and what's next in the world of shopping and what retailers need to adopt to increase their bottom line. Are you brave enough to make a few predictions there?
Sure, and I'll sort of we've been talking about 3D and AR and the visual part of shopping. So let me just step away from that for a second and talk about a couple other things that I think are going to be important for merchants going forward. I think more payment options for contactless payment and automated checkouts. We're already seeing stores that you just pick up the items and walk out with them, and they're all automatically checked out and billed. So those are things that I expect to see happening soon. We'll see faster and more delivery options. So I think fast and personal delivery is a part of a brand experience. And so merchants are concerned about their brands and they'll work on those aspects of their business. People certainly love the immediacy of purchasing in a physical store. And if you can reduce the wait time in an online experience and make it almost as convenient, that's very compelling for our consumer. Getting back to 3D and AR for a second, the in-store experience, incorporating digital technology such as smart mirrors and customization kiosks, where you can view things on a large enhanced monitor. That makes the experience very compelling. We'll see concierge services that people walking around the store with tablets and visualization devices to help consumers shop better. So those are a couple more things. And then another thing that I would look for is the use of LiDAR. We've seen that make its way into smartphones today, and we're seeing it more and more places. So the ability to do custom fitting and automate sizing selections, whether you're at home or in store, is something that I would look for as well.
Well, I've absolutely loved chatting with you today. And I'd love to get you back on next year as well and see how some of those ideas and trends are coming into fruition. But as you've listened to the podcast before, you know what's coming. We've talked about your origin story. It's now time for the most difficult question of our interview, and that is, what has been the soundtrack to your origin story? Is there a particular song or piece of music that has stuck with you or helped you in your career or inspired you? What's your song and story, and why?
Well, that is definitely the hardest question in your interview today. My song tastes vary across a lot of genres and eras, and it depends on when you ask me. But for today, there's a song that was sort of stuck in my head, and it's an old song by Journey that's called "Don't Stop Believing." And the things that I like about the song is it has a very positive message in the title. And then the lyrics themselves sort of recognize our aspirations and dreams as people. And then it also talks about the role of chance, the role that chance plays in our lives. And I think that last point's kind of relevant today because, as we go through our business challenges through COVID, nobody expected this to happen, and we've all had to deal with it. So, I think that element of chance is kind of important.
It really is a great choice, which I'm going to be humming for the rest of the day now. So thank you for that. But before I let you go, for anyone listening, wanting to find out more information about that report that you referenced earlier in our conversation, some of the use cases, or find you guys online, what's the best starting point?
Yeah. So again, thanks for asking, Neil. I think the best place for people to start would just be to go to our homepage at zakeke.com, and that's zakeke.com. And I think it's worth a visit for anyone because we have ebooks, guides, videos, blogs. We have a lot of case studies, and those will help the listeners to facilitate their journey into and through digital commerce and, frankly, commerce in general. So all of the material is free to download. You can share it. And of course, there's ways to contact us. So we're always happy to field questions and provide any follow-up.
Well, I think there's so much we've covered today, from the evolution of virtual shopping, 3D, AR, virtual try-ons, etc., and what that technology will lead to, and the importance of brands needing to adopt an omnichannel approach to shopping, plus where we're heading to in the future. But all that washed out with your origin story and a cracking soundtrack to boot. So thank you so much for joining me on the podcast today.
All right. Thank you, Neil.
Wow, we covered so much there, from the evolution of virtual shopping, 3D, augmented reality, and where that technology will lead. And also interesting to hear how fashion, gaming, furniture, sports equipment, just about anything you can imagine, all those brands and retailers involved in those industries are going to need to adopt technology that's going to help customers visualize and customize their purchase. And customization and the importance of allowing customers to play the role of creator. I think that's going to be an interesting trend to watch out for next year. But over to you. I'm just a guy sat in front of a microphone every day, talking to people and giving you my opinions along the way. But I'd love to hear yours. So I've got thousands of you listening all over the world with unique experiences and insights. And you're going to be seeing different things in every corner of the world. And what somebody will see here in the UK or in Silicon Valley will be completely different to what somebody's seeing in Asia at the moment. So please, this is your true calling to pop me a message. So email me, techblogwriter@outlook.com, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, etc. at Neil C. Hughes. And my website is techblogwriter.co.uk. But that's it for today's episode. So keep those messages coming in. A big thank you for listening. And until next time, don't be a stranger.
Thank you for listening to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast with Neil C. Hughes. Remember, technology works best when it brings people together.